2021. And the second in this series after the one that we had last December. Those who attended obviously will remember that. Despite the effort that has been made to vaccinate the world population and to put shots in the arms of the people, COVID-19 still is a reality that affects everyone's life day over day. Remember in late 2020, when we had the last webinar, we all thought with the arrival of vaccines, we have the worst behind us. And I do not want to say or to indicate that exactly the opposite has happened, but as we all know, the journey is much longer and the road bumpier as we all anticipated or expected. The industry is still bleeding, and although depending on the channel or geographic area that one operates in, the recovery has been more or less pronounced. The objective of this morning session is to deliver an overview over the pandemic by region and business channel, and pass on some associations news as well, which we believe are relevant to you. We have, and I'm very pleased to announce that, invited 3 high-profile panelists who will share their experience, how they did business during the COVID pandemic, and particularly also how confident they are about our industry's short and long-term perspectives. Same as in December, we have prepared some poll questions. The idea behind that is to understand how you perceive the situation and foresee the future. There will also be the opportunity to ask questions. In order to do so, I simply ask you to use the Q&A button on your screen, as you will be muted during the session. With that being said, I will pass on to our CEO and President, Michael Payne, who I don't have to introduce you further. He will talk about the association's advocacy efforts and give us some insight about the 2022 Summit of the Americas. We also have with us Arnaud de Volontat, member of the board of TFWA, and he will inform us about the upcoming Cannes show and give us the latest information. Michael?
Good morning, good afternoon. Very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for taking time to join us today on our webinar. As we have a fairly robust agenda today, I wanted to take just a very few quick minutes and share with our audience some news regarding our 2022 Summit of the Americas. The board of directors, after some very thoughtful and considerate discussions combined with some feedback from our supplier and buyer community, had decided to go forward with a live event in Palm Beach, Florida over the dates of April 10th through the 13th, 2022. The format will be substantially different than the previous years, with the primary focus being on content, executive learning, business networking, and ample face-to-face opportunities. We'll have the opportunity for some exhibits, but it'll be substantially less than previous years, and will consist of a few private meeting rooms and some limited public space for creative and what we hope will be engaging exhibits. We'll have some time for several social events, to read cocktail hours in the evening before people go off for dinner. There's an incredible array of restaurants and opportunities for entertainment within walking distance of the Palm Beach Convention Center. So we want to let people be able to enjoy their time there as well. Our goal is to make this an inclusive, cost-effective, and user-friendly experience. We hope to attract all those engaged in every sector of the travel and duty-free retail experience. We're going to work together with other organizations and other entities to develop content that we think will be of the highest quality, that'll be of real value and interest to the membership and our attendees. We also want to leave time for people to plan their day with a little bit more independence and freedom than perhaps we used to where we scheduled everything so tightly. We'll comply with all the public health and safety requirements that are in effect at that time. No one knows exactly what travel is going to look like 7 months from now, but we're prepared to make it safe and secure, and we're optimistic that travel will look very different than today, and hopefully more and more people will be ready for a spring emergence next year. There's obviously a lot more details to be made available in the coming weeks, which we will certainly do, including ample sponsorship and engagement opportunities. I would say to you that importantly, most of our retail partners have committed to be a part of this and committed to be a participant and send suppliers and buyers to the meeting. We'll get this information out to you in the near future. We're working hard to get all the website facts up and running, and we'll do that as quickly as we can. We're starting a little bit later than normal, but I think everybody understands that this is not normal time frame, and it took us a while to really get to this point that we wanted to go forward. But for now, what I would like for you to do is just please note the dates, plan to be there, help us spread the word. We're going to need your support. We're very excited to be back together again, face to face in Palm Beach, Florida next year. So please stand by, more to come, and we'll provide a lot more information in the coming weeks for you. So what I want to do now, if I could, is just introduce my friend and a longtime participant in the summit, Arnaud, who was just introduced by Renee, of TFWA board. And he's going to share a few words about Cannes, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks. So Arnaud, thank you for taking time to be with us.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, the association, EADFS, to give us that opportunity to share a little bit with you what's going to happen in Cannes in 2 weeks. So it's just, I would like to ensure that Cannes will happen for sure. Obviously, everybody knows that the situation is difficult, so it will be a mini Cannes. But anyhow, what to expect in Cannes this year? So we will obviously welcome back everybody to business with an exhibition that will open on Monday at 12 after the morning conferences at 9. We will have extended opening hours from 8:30 to 6:30 p.m. Except on Thursday. And the exhibition will close on Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. This year in Cannes, we will have a pretty strong panel of speakers with Jaya Singh, our president, the TFWA president. We will have Jane Sun, which is the chief executive officer from Trip.com. We will have Benjamin Vuchot, chairman and chief executive officer from DFS Group. We will have Raphael Schwarzman, the regional VP Europe for IATA. And we will have Jay Richards, which is a specialist for consumer insight. Just to confirm everybody that again it will be a mini Cannes, but even though we have pre-registered buyers and visitors up to 2,500 people already. We have already almost 1,000 companies that will come. And we have as well 250 exhibitors that will be exhibit at the show. Obviously, the main concern perhaps is about the health. So the association will make everything possible to care about your safety. So we will offer health and safety measures and medical concierge service in the Palais des Festivals. We will ask obviously a health pass that will be required for the entry, showing proof of vaccination or recent negative test within 72 hours via QR code. All the visitors vaccinated outside of Europe may need actually to convert the QR code to the UE system. And we will offer as well at the Palais the antigen test available. It will be on site. And for the one that will have to use PCR test, we have a location that will be very close to the Palais. So it's just, I think I have updated you. And again, I want to reassure that Cannes will happen. We are actually very happy because let's say it's a mini Cannes, but we are almost at 50% of exhibitors, buyers coming. Obviously, it's a difficult year, and we hope that all the people in the Americas region will commit and will attend this show, and we will welcome them obviously with a big hug. So that's it. Thank you to you guys. Again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this event that will happen in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Arnaud, and wish you really good luck in Cannes. Now, that brings us to the first poll question. Steve, would you please put the first question onto the screen, and then you as participant, you will have the opportunity to select the answer that you feel is for you the right one. We give you a couple of seconds, and then we will show the results immediately thereafter. We may, if we see some interesting results, I will make comment it.
Renee, we're at about 50% of our participants that have answered so far, so.
Good. Let's wait a little bit more. I think that we are close to have a representative result. Okay, Steve.
Okay, the poll is closed, and here are our poll results.
So here is a question regarding staffing since the outbreak of the pandemic, which best describes your company? And then here we have with 35% leading, we have reduced our staff by more than 20%. And this is a question that we had already last December, just to see whether there has anything changed in comparison to what you answered in last December. But we can clearly see that most of the majority of cases, if you take also those which say we have maintained our staff but are not hiring, which is also very impressive. We have though the majority of people who say they have reduced staff by more than 20%. Okay, thank you, Steve. With that, we're going to go to the first panelist, and I'm really extremely delighted to introduce to you our first panelist, Jordi Martin Consuegra. Jordi was named the Chief Executive Officer of Hudson in July 2021. Prior to that, he was Executive Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer, and Deputy CEO since joining Hudson in August 2018. Previously, Jordi served in a variety of positions for Dufry AG, including Chief Resource Director from 2017 to 2018. He was Global Resource Director 2012-2016. Global Organization and Human Resource Director from 2009-2012, Global Integration Director from 2008-2009, and Global Information Technology Director from 2005-2008. He has an executive MBA from Instituto de Empresa, Madrid, a degree in Economics and Business from Universidad Complutense de Madrid, and a Bachelor of Arts in Combined Studies from University of Wolverhampton in the UK. Thank you, Jordi, for joining us. I will just go straight into the questions. The first one, please, Jordi, give us a little bit of feedback in general about how you have seen the year so far.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Renee, and thank you for the invitation. First and foremost, really happy to be here, and what a comprehensive review of my history. I thank you very much. Listen, it's been a roller coaster of a year for all of us, but ending on a super positive note. Great things we all know, vaccines, our industry coming together, including the initiatives the association is driving. Congratulations for everything you're doing. Best news is the travelers want to travel, and they do it as soon as they can. And that has given us a very good foundation for growth. We followed at Hudson, we followed a strategy of opening early. We started opening stores as soon as the lockdowns began to lift back in May, June last year. By the end of the year of last year, we had 70% of our stores open, and by now it's close to 90%. So we opened quickly and early to be there as soon as the traffic flow appeared. And that has given us a good foundation to take advantage of the rebound that we've seen in the US. By now in the US, we are seeing, after a peak of approximately minus 20%, excuse me, over the summer versus 19 numbers in traffic, now it's stabilized somewhere close to minus 25%, but it's a very good foundation. And what we're seeing is we're able to improve our numbers on average, even a little bit more than that. A very regionalized recovery, as we know, very focused on leisure and sun destinations, although not only. And also a recovery that has been super strong in duty paid, particularly travel, convenience, and food. Less strong in duty free, although again, we're seeing some strong numbers in those destinations that are attracting the leisure traffic that is prevalent right now. And in general, a year of flexibility. Only last week, the CDC changed the rules for quarantining in case of exposure to somebody who has been positive. So, you know, this constant informing our people and making sure we implement the latest standards, supply chain challenges, staffing challenges, everything we're seeing. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of living on the edge, a lot of innovation as well, a lot of trying to be ready for the future, but overall, a positive year, frankly, considering where we were back in the early spring. I think things have changed a lot, and they continue to change very quickly, particularly after the latest announcements and measures that have been taken in Canada and the US to open for international travel. So a lot of everything, but mostly good.
Thank you. And that leads me to the second question. How do you see the holiday season coming, and how confident are you that we will see the year closing on a positive note? Now, you just mentioned the latest changes with respect to transatlantic corridor that's going to go open in Europe and in the US. That might probably and very likely help on the duty-free side. But how do you see in general the rest of the year?
We are optimistic. I think that there are maybe 3 or 4 drivers that we need to look at. Leisure travel has continued to be strong. I mean, we're seeing that levels of traffic have stabilized at a very good level, even beyond the summer season. Right? We are now seeing -23, -20, -25, very good levels of traffic driven mainly by leisure, and that's a positive surprise. And we hope that carries us a little bit further. International travel, as we just discussed, is pointing upward. We are already seeing good positive impact from the opening of Canada after the 9th of September to international travelers. And we are convinced, and the intel we are getting from the industry is good, that after the opening of the US, we're going to see good stuff happening. The return of the Chinese and the Asian passenger is less clear. We are forecasting that will only begin to happen at some point of next year, probably more pointing toward the second half. And the vaccinations continue at a good pace. And we are now at 2/3 of the US population vaccinated with at least 1 dose. The minus, the gray area is business travel. I am personally more optimistic about the long-term picture in business travel, but the reality is that even I think IATA had a meeting in Boston this week, and a few of the airline CEOs were quite bullish that business travel would return in full by 2023, and I've seen some forecasts in that direction. Nobody knows, but we are optimistic, but perhaps not so in the short term. So I think we'll still see a differential versus what we have grown used to, but we will continue to see growth is our expectation between now and the end of the year and certainly into next year. So we are pretty optimistic within reason.
Excellent, excellent. The next question has to do with customer behavior. How do you see customer behavior has changed post-COVID? And do you believe this being just a short-term effect or more of a long-term sustainable change of behavior?
We already in the industry, we have all seen that the age of isolation from what was going on out there in the world, if I can be a bit blunt, digitization, fast evolution of technology, changing demographics, changing product preferences, changing shopping behaviors, that had to go away at some point. There was like this fictional wall between what was happening in the airports and what was happening out there. It was going away, but very slowly. And now on top of that, we see customers are used to, are expecting social distancing transactions, are used to one-click shopping. They expect more speed, less hassle. If there is an environment where all of that is even more important, is the airport environment for all the reasons we know, with the stress and the pressure. So what COVID has done is catalyze all that and given us a push and a mandate to innovate faster. We were all in our different roles, innovating and trying to come up to speed. But now the mandate is very clear and very imminent. And my take is all of this is going to be emphasized, enhanced. Not only is it not going to go away, it is going to be necessary for all of us to adapt to this, I think, largely unaddressed customer needs, to be more contactless, to be quicker, to be more agile in what we offer and how we offer it, in the channels we use to reach the customers. All of this is not only going to stay, it's going to be a must. So we really need to do a lot of stuff, and we're all doing it in one way or another to live up to that expectation, which is going to stay. And very importantly, to find a way that's our own way in travel retail, that to do it without sacrificing the customer experience and the service level that we like to give. I think we have to find our own answer to all of that opportunity, but there is clearly an unaddressed need. One example that's very clear to us is the Hudson Nonstop stores we have opened with just walk out technology. Just scan your credit card, you come in, you pick up what you want to buy, you get out. No queue, nothing. The uptake from customers, from travelers, has been beyond our most optimistic expectations. There is an unaddressed need, and it's not going to go away. And that's our take on this. We need to innovate and innovate faster to live up to that expectation. There's a great opportunity there. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity.
Thank you, Jordi, and that leads me exactly to the next question. How do you, or how have you used the time during lockdown and airport closures to prepare for the recovery, and what were the main initiatives that you have taken? I think you just probably, I guess that what you should mention before, that was one of the initiatives that you have pushed forward, is the innovation, technology, etc. But can you be a bit more specific on that?
Sure. Listen, after the shock, the March 2020 shock, once we basically reorganized and restructured to ensure our survival as a company, we focus on what is happening next. And we all knew there was going to be life after COVID. So we accelerated all of the innovation program and ideas that we already had, plus some new ones. So we have been focusing on opening new retail formats, such as Hudson Nonstop, which I mentioned, such as Evolve, which we opened in Nashville, the first one a month ago, combining specialty and travel convenience in an innovative way, on rehashing our brand Brookstone, a lifestyle brand that we have reinvented for the travel environment, on expanding our offering in food, such as opening Plant Market or Join the Juice and other solutions, incorporating new products to our offering, new partnerships, and investing in digital execution, omni-channel execution, not only e-commerce, but also our loyalty program, investing in self-checkout, pointing at the point we were making about customers wanted to have a frictionless experience. Self-checkout, we didn't think the market was ready for self-checkout in the US 2 years ago. We invested and found out it is ready today, very ready. So that's another example of technology in store that we've incorporated. A lot of stuff. And now that the travelers are there and begin to be there in most of the locations, we also focusing on something we call building back stronger together, which is not very original, but is very clear. Before, it was enough to open the store and have some stock for the travelers in the early days of the pandemic. That's no longer the case. Now we need to operate with quality and provide service on top of having our estate open. And we can only do this as a team, and we are trying to basically come up to speed and provide the quality of execution that we like to think we used to. And that means addressing all of those opportunities that still exist in supply chain, in staffing, in internal processes. We also overhauled our technology platform, our internal systems. We did that basically last year. And we also have a very clear strategy to reinvent the traveler's best friend experience of the future. As you know, one of our mottos in Hudson is we're the traveler's best friend, which is a very simple and clear way of identifying our mission. And this means we need to continue to find new ways of retailing concepts, products, offerings for customers, new markets, new channels, omni-channel, food, and investing in the digital space. So all of that is coming to fruition, and some of the stuff is already out there in the market. Some of the stuff is coming, but the short answer to your question is we didn't really stop rethinking and trying to understand how to best be ready for what travelers and our partners, landlords, expected the day after the pandemic. And there's no a day after the pandemic. It's not as we would have hoped, oh, it's over, but it is very clear the pandemic is not where it used to be, and those demands are there. We need to be ready for them.
Absolutely, thank you. I don't know how you handled that and how you saw that, but I heard a lot about the difficulty that operators had to rehire staff, or on the other side, to secure the most talented people that they stay and not walk away because they had better opportunities elsewhere. Was that an issue in your organization? And if yes, how did you handle that?
Sure. I mean, it's been nothing less than dramatic. I mean, the market has been super tough. We benefit from our strategy to open early, so we have more time to build that. But still, immensely tough. It's taking much more time and focus and changes in the offering, in the compensation and benefits package, particularly in some markets, to attract than it used to, much more. Very difficult. Slowly but surely, we're finding the people we need, but I'm not afraid to say we always need more people than we have. We have been in that situation for many months, but still, overall, we are managing, again, at an immense effort from all points of view. But I think what's really important here is there are some short-term aspects to that situation. Yes, there are many people who are not entering the market because they have childcare issues, or because they have somebody with health issues at home, or because they're scared. I think the unemployment benefit is proving to be a little bit of a myth. Based on the surveys I've seen, only 13% of people who are not out there in the market were not there because of the unemployment. But still, a number of short-term issues. But I think what's important is really a strong structural change. If we want people to work for us, we need to adapt to what they now expect. They expect different stuff. They expect flexibility. They expect hybrid or remote work. They expect different compensation. They expect recognition, belonging, good management. There's a lot of options out there. So unless we stay at the top of our game, we are really going to have a structural problem, even after the short-term challenges disappear, which I think they will. The market has changed structurally, and we are trying to rethink first how we communicate the quality of our offering, but also what has to change for us to be able to attract and retain people in the new age, because things have changed.
Yeah, airports are typically not the most attractive place to work in comparison, and you compete here with High Street and locations which are obviously the more attractive. But yeah, I hear you. Now, I have one last question for you, Jordi. In general, how confident we have talked about the short-term future, basically just the remainder of this year, but how do you see the long-term future of travel retail industry in general? How positive you are about, how much confidence you have about that?
Sure. If you don't mind, Rene, on the previous point, the airports are a very exciting place to work. We have to explain it better, but I think we all share, all of us who work in this industry, that our people are immensely loyal because it's an exciting, dynamic environment in duty-free and beyond. So I think we have a lot going for us, but clearly it has its drawbacks as well, and we need to rethink what we offer. Now, on your point, we are bullish. The best news is, as I mentioned before, travelers are back. They want to fly, and as soon as we let them, as soon as we remove the constraints, the unclear regulations, they vaccinate, they are ready to travel. And every single survey that I've seen, including our own surveys, say that most people are ready and willing to travel. And not only that, they are ready and willing to shop, and they're looking for the experience to shop. And that's still very attractive, even considering all the things that have changed in the world. We all know the forecasts. I don't know, it's anyone's guess, but forecasts say we're going to recover, and we're going to recover relatively fast in terms of travel volumes within the next couple of years. In terms of business, I am more optimistic than most. I think business in different ways business travel is going to come back. Maybe even some new types of business travel are going to appear. Performance is looking good. The spend per passenger, the average ticket is looking good. We retain our ability to attract the purchase when the traveler is there. And we need to keep an eye on continuing to innovate. And as soon as possibilities allow, and each of our companies and of our businesses is different, as soon as possibilities allow, invest in remaining attractive in terms of what we offer to customers, how we offer it, how we reach out to them. That's going to be really, I think, essential to maximize the opportunity. But the opportunity is there. It's still a difficult road, no question about that. I don't want to come across as rosy, but the opportunity is there, and we really have a clear path to success. We've all done the homework. We've all done everything we need to do to position ourselves, and we think the future is looking good. And if anything, it's happening faster than we thought it would at the beginning of this year. So good stuff for the future.
Thank you very much, Jordi. Excellent information. We appreciate your time. So what I would suggest now, we're going to come to the second poll question, Steve. And this poll question will be, when considering the fiscal year that includes COVID-19 and economic fallout, where are the revenues for which you are responsible? And here are the proposed answers. Obviously, we expect a little bit of a different picture, as this is very similar questions we had in December, and I would be surprised if you see the same sort of answers. We should see now a little bit of answers that are a bit more optimistic, as we have seen last December. Steve, how do we stand?
Rene, we're about 50% of our participants that have responded so far.
Okay, give a couple of more seconds and then please close the. Okay. Okay, Steve. Still down more than 20%. 56% have answered, which in that sense is pretty similar as we have seen in December. We have 5% say they're up, more than 20%, 15% less than 20%, I'm still up, essentially like 8%, but then you have 70% who say is down between 0 and more than 20%. So it's still a proof here that the industry is still suffering from the pandemic in one way or the other. Okay, good. We're gonna come to the next panelist. I don't have really to introduce her. She has been with us last December. It is Jackie McDonagh. She's the General Manager and Director of Ariante International North America, responsible for duty-free operations and the company's 5 airports in North America since March 2017, 4 of which are in Canada and 1 in Barbados. Prior to relocating to Canada, Jackie was GM of Ariante Ireland, covering Dublin and Cork. Ariante International North America has won Best Airport Retailer in Americas for 2 consecutive years, Best Travel Retailer in the Americas in 2020, and Best Canadian Duty-Free Operator for 4 consecutive years. Good morning, Jackie. Same as with Jordi, we are just going into the questions. And the first question to you is, can you give us some insights about the Canadian travel retail market post-COVID? Obviously, Canada has been kind of secluded there and for a longer period of time, much longer than the US, in sort of a lockdown. How has the Canadian travel retail market evolved since you went into lockdown?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. In the Canadian side of the business, I suppose it has been a lot restrictive in terms of the travel retail industry. Last March 2020, obviously, we closed stores for months, and then we reopened in July on reduced trading hours. And then we thought things were going to get a little bit better and better, and we had a good month in December. And then the Canadian government brought in new restrictions with the hotel quarantine and PCR tests and the quarantine in 14 days, despite having a PCR test. So the whole February, March, April completely just went really bad again, even worse than where we were in mid-July. And that didn't help. And then obviously the cancelling of all the chartered flights into the Caribbean and into Mexico from Canada was another big blow, because obviously people were used to getting away for spring break, and that was a big season for us in Canada with the snowbirds, and then that just all fell apart as well. So what we have seen so far now is there is some growth coming, and it's very steady. It's slow, albeit it's not rising significantly, but it is not deteriorating back again, which is a good thing. So it's a slow growth.
Thank you, Jackie. And let us tell us a bit about the policies that the government, the Canadian government, obviously has enacted that affect the travel retail business in Canada, for the good or for the bad. What has the government done in order to support?
And the government has given a wage subsidy where they've covered up to 70% of somebody's salary up to a cap of $59,000. So they did that for a while, and then they extended it, and then they reduced it down to 50% of somebody's salary. And today it's at 25%. So that has been very significant for us to be able to claim that from the Canadian government. Also, what they did was, for people who were laid off and furloughed, so to speak, it was a 2,000 Canadian dollars per month for every employee that was laid off at that time. And the Canadian government have also allowed a cap again on rent subsidies for certain locations, whether it be restaurants, small-time businesses, maybe some small locations that we have. So they've been pretty okay, I have to say, in that sense.
Good. So that helped obviously a lot in order to bridge this difficult period where you were basically locked down. Now, let us quickly talk about the borders, US-Canadian borders. I know that you're not directly invested as a company in the border business, but obviously you understand a little bit what is going on down there. And can you please tell us a bit how much is still affected following the opening of the border for vaccinated US tourists? You know, we know that there was a ban in place for non-essential travel, and then unilaterally Canada has lifted the ban, but the US still keeps the ban. So US Americans, they can get across the border as long as they are fully vaccinated. How has that impacted business?
That's been very slow as well, because the issue we have, Renee, is that despite having a double vaccination, you still need to have a PCR test coming to Canada. So the only difference is if it's negative, you don't have to quarantine. So that's a bit off-putting for a lot of people. It's easier maybe to go into certain parts of the US or to go to Mexico that even if you're double vaxxed, you don't need to do some of those tests in certain areas. So I think that's the challenge, that really the Canadian government needs to lift something about this PCR test if people are double vaccinated. And that has to happen, because I think that's putting a lot of people off from going away to have to deal with that to come back in. And it can be up to $200 for every PCR test, which if you're a family of 4 people, it's $800 for anything else. So I think the government have to really do something about that, because I think that's will start the evolution of basically more traffic coming in. In terms of the borders, people who fly from the US double vaccinated with a PCR into Canada, Canadians can fly into the US, double vaccinated, etc. But you cannot drive down over the border. So that's going to open up on the 21st of November. Now, nobody kind of really understands what the methodology is behind that, because you can fly in, but you can't drive in. So I think that's due to open up on the 21st of November.
It's quite a paradox on that. We're going to see that later when we talk about the southern border, which is pretty much the same. You remember, Jackie, we have talked last December about the recovery plan, and you have laid out the plan that you have in mind very clearly, and it's very interesting to hear that. Can you share now, almost a year later, some insights about what your experience was with rolling out this recovery plan and resuming the operations, the airports that you operate?
Yeah, we did a lot in terms of focusing on training for staff, customer service, using the opportunity when we were in lockdown to really get our new website up and running. So we launched a new online platform. We've got 6,000 products available to shop on it. So we took that opportunity to really roll this out so we would be ready for a comeback. We've also focused a lot on customer service training, and then looking at efficiencies in terms of what people expect when they come to the airport. As Jordi pointed out earlier on, it can be quite stressful as a passenger now, because of the different layers of protocols that we need to follow between masks, sanitizing, temperature checks, and COVID-19 passports, etc. So I think our biggest focus was to really focus on the customer and make sure that they were at the heart and the center of everything that we do, whether it be new products. We focused on promotions, and we brought in new brands. Last week, we just launched a new LXR pre-loved concept on designer handbags, which is in line with our sustainability strategy. And we just took the time to really look for a customer-centric approach. And the online store is a really good opportunity as well, because back to one of the questions that was asked from Jordi earlier on was about how customers' behavior. And we see, at the moment, we see 2 types. We see customers that actually want to engage and have that personal experience with staff, and to make them feel good, self-treating, because they're actually excited to be back in the airport and they're excited to be flying again. So this whole offer of the retail and the engagement starts there as well at the airport. And then the other type of customer behavior is really online efficiencies. I know what I want. I just want to get out, get in and get out. So that's what we've seen. So we've got to support them, those 2 consumers.
Yeah, basically you answered just my next question, which is about customer propensity and a change of behavior. The same question I asked Jordi before. How sustainable do you think this is, or do you think that they're going to come back to what it used to be once we are over this pandemic? This is a big question. This is just short term. People are excited to fly again, and there's a lot of catch up also. Or do you see that it's going to be sustainable and we're going to carry on with this kind of change behavior, or it's going to come back?
Personally, I see that the change behavior will still apply. I think we will get back to where we were at a large proportion of demographic, but I think there's going to be always an area there that we will have somebody now that has shopped differently for the last 18, 20 months. And I think, and a lot of that is about safety, feeling safe. It's about being efficient. And it depends, like, you know, what you know, if you particularly know what you want to get, you can log on, go online, pick it up in the store, get in, go to the gate. Some people just want to do that because health and safety wise, efficiency wise, or maybe they just don't like shopping and they've become accustomed to this way of it and they quite like it. And, you know, I think we've seen that on Instagram channels and you know, I've spoken to so many people that said they never really shopped online before, but now they do all their shopping online. So it's quite interesting. I don't see that moving away.
Good. The same question as I asked also Jody, I would like to ask you was about staff hiring and staff retaining. Do you have similar issues that your colleagues has in other parts of the world, or you say no differences to before?
Well, we've had to make some cuts back, and we've had people that were on layoff and then decided they did not want to come back. So we have had to start hiring again for specific roles that we need to manage the store and manage those efficiencies, cashiers, etc. So we have had some fallout naturally from that. But one of the biggest challenges that we're having in Canada across the board right now is the fact that it's very hard to get staff and extremely hard to recruit. A lot of restaurants, for example, downtown Montreal are not able to open back up again because they don't have the staff to wait on the tables. So they're just doing delivery and pickup. It's the same in hotels. They haven't opened the restaurants or the bars in a lot of the hotels because of that reason. So that's how bad it is. And staff are at home and they're getting $2,000 a month from the government. So I'm having to pay tax and there's no interest in. So it's really tough at the moment. Even some restaurants and big restaurants in downtown Montreal can't open anymore on a Sunday or a Monday. So there's a huge shortage of staff here in Canada at the moment. So even to show that example, I suppose, in the airport itself, we have enough, but we have to hire more now. But a lot of the food and beverage outlets in Montreal Airport are closed because of the staffing issue. And all food and beverage, except for one land site, are all closed. And it's down to, I cannot get staff. I suppose the other issue we're having as well that just arose, it's been, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the US, but I don't think it's happened yet in some of the Canadian other airports, but it's been mandatory now that every staff member that works in Montreal Airport has to have a double vaccination with a COVID-19 passport. Now that includes people that have to work on the taxis, in the car parks, everywhere, all on campus. So a lot of people, we have to go through that process now too, to make sure we have staff, and not all staff at the airport are 100% vaccinated as of yet. So there's challenges coming at us at a couple of different levels when it comes to staffing here.
Thank you, Jackie. My last question, just a short answer to that. How do you see 2022 and beyond? How quick you think that we're going to come over it?
I think I'd like to think and I'd like to hope that we would have a good charter season and a lot of flights going down south, the Caribbean, Mexico. I think people may travel twice this year. They may travel pre-Christmas and after Christmas. I think international travel here for Canada is probably not going to come back really until the summer of 22. I think business passengers will be more 2023. I think it'll start obviously slowly in 22, but I think we'll see it back in 23. And I think that really Chinese PRC flights, etc., it could be late summer. That's what I would say. And I'd say going to 23, we'll start to get back to some form of normality. And then I think 24 onwards and upwards. And I see it strong in the travel retail industry.
That obviously all depends on whether we are gonna face another variant, and that can push us back further. But thank you, Jackie, for your contributions. Very appreciated. And that will bring us to the next poll question. Steve, The next poll question is, in terms of revenue projections, please indicate your level of confidence over the next 12 months. And here are the 3 answers. We will be outperforming. We expect to have similar performance 2021, or we are not too confident, expect to be underperforming compared to 2021. So that is in terms of revenue and revenue projections, how you see 2022, next 12 months in terms of performance. Where we are, Steve?
We're at about 50% of our participants have responded so far.
Give a couple of more seconds and then we will show the results. Please. Okay, Steve. And here we are. 52% say that we will outperform next year, and we have 42% that say we will probably perform same as this year, and just a small percentage of 6 that say we are not too confident. And this is pretty positive, I would say. So we all hope and we are confident that 2022 will be all over a better year than 2020 and 2021. Thank you, Steve. That being said, we're going to come to the third panelist. I really don't have to introduce him to you. It is Erasmo Riac, who has graduated from Drake University in 1976. And afterwards, he attended the MBA program at INCAE, where he graduated in 1978. The same year, then he joined Motta International Operations. Since then, Erasmo has had several positions in the company, in IT, purchase, in general management. He's currently the CEO of Motta International Group. In addition, he has served as the director of Banco Continental, the Colón Free Trade Zone, and Fundación Portobello in San Lorenzo. And for the last 15 years, he's also been involved with IADFS. And you all know he has been my predecessor in the position of chairman. He's married and has 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren. And if you permit, Erasmo, we just go also straight to the questions. Thank you for being with us, Erasmo. The first question here: with some exceptions, South and Central America have been sluggish in getting people vaccinated. Not everywhere, there's those exceptions though, but in general, they make though also in the last couple of weeks and months some progress. But can you shed some lights about the current situation?
Good morning to everybody. Yesterday or the day before, I forgot when, I read an article that on Global Travel Magazine that says our industry depends on global vaccination. The best estimation right now is that we have 4 billion people not vaccinated. And we really, all countries, we need to get to a higher degree of vaccination. Latin America began very slow with vaccination. Back at the beginning of the year, they have made some progress, different type of vaccines, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Sinovac. But we have some countries that have made significant progress. Uruguay, with 2 doses, they have about 96% of the population as of September, closing of the month of September. Mexico has about 45%. Colombia has about 33%. Nicaragua has about 4.2%. El Salvador has 52%. Ecuador has about 73%. Peru has about 46.8%. Chile about 74%. Panama about 75%. So we see a significant progress in the past. We follow this very closely, and in the last 2-3 months, we have seen a substantial increase. We have less anti-vaxxers in Latin America, I have to say, at least there are less vocals. So we foresee that by the end of this calendar year, the situation in Latin America as far as vaccination will be much better. Also, that will supply that travel restrictions are lifted. A few countries already, like my home country of Panama, lifted the restriction of a PCR test. If you are fully vaccinated, you just have to show it electronically. Colombia did the same. So we foresee that changes are coming that will inspire traveling, especially what I would say the leisure travel will come back sooner than the corporate travel. I'm pretty much convinced about that. But like Jackie, I think, mentioned, and Jordi, people want to have experiences. They want to go out and travel, and they're just waiting to get vaccinated. Hopefully, there are no more Delta variants or Delta plus variants. So I foresee that, things are improving in Latin America. Some countries are doing better than others. Some countries are, but in general, I foresee a much better cloud out there.
Thanks, Erasmo. Then, as you say, you hope that some of the bans be lifted and borders open. How do you see that translates into airport traffic in South America evolving for the rest of the year, and more particularly also into 2022, which I think we are all in the process now of planning next year. So it's important to understand a little bit how South America is going to evolve from a traffic perspective, air traffic perspective.
That's a very interesting question. I think we have to measure. It's an equation with many different variables. One variable is vaccinations and restrictions. Another variable is airline seats available. I follow mostly the countries where we operate, and numbers up to August. Bogota is increasing the amount of flights that they allow per day. They were allowing 40, and they are now going to 60 and to this month and 90 next month. So that would allow more available planes. Argentina is also lifting some regulations they had about the number of planes they could manage per hour. So I foresee that's coming, slowly or surely, but it's coming. Bogota is, the numbers I have is they are at 51.4% up to the month of August of the passengers they had in 2019. And the number of flights is 63% of the number of flights they had in 2019. Panama is 64% of what we had in 2019, with 67% of the flights. El Salvador is about 60% of what they had in 2019, with 75% of the flights. And Quito is about 50% with 50% of the flights. So we see a tendency, more planes are rolling back in. A lot of these planes, remember, have been placed in storage in different places, deserts. They have to go through a C-check or D-check, and there's a scarcity of labor everywhere. So slowly but surely, I foresee that there will be more airline passengers available seats. When I don't have a really good idea, but I foresee like by June, we will have reached more closely to what we had in 2019. Remember, a lot of companies in Latin America decommissioned some planes as well. They were sold to other places. We also had Avianca going into, which is an important airline in the area, going into Chapter 11. They are coming out of Chapter 11 this month. So we have to see what happened with that available seats. If they are available, I think people will travel. When we had 9/11 back in 2001, one of the cruise ships leaders, don't recall who, said price beat fear. And if people have fear of flying, I think the airlines will start to, there are a lot of offers out there. I am sure there will be a lot of offers out there. Also, we are seeing here in the States, we're involved in the cruise ship. We are seeing more vessels going out, 50% capacity, but we see that by January, there will be a substantial number of boats going out with people, and that will mean passengers traveling, okay? So I foresee a much better picture in 2022. I would say there will be about 70% of 2019 in the first half of the year, and maybe 80% of 2019 by the second part of the year. if I have to be a mathematician, which I am not, or if I have to be a magician, and I am not. But that's my educated guess, Rene.
Good. Just a clarification, if I may say so, Erasmo, if you talk about weed, and you talk probably about copper, correct?
No, I cannot, I cannot talk, only what is publicly available.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I understand
Yeah.
that. But, just do for clarification on that. Okay, from your point of view, what has been the most challenging part during COVID, and how have you been able to resolve it?
Okay, in no particular order. Number one, negotiation with airports, negotiating IMGs, minimum guarantees, based on passengers, not based on what the contract says. We have had airports that have been more understanding about it. Some other airports, we have, and I think I've been a key success that we have brought independent parties to determine what should be the proper rate, a fair rate. And that brings out, the dark cloud. Is management and operators kind of together and pick something. No, third parties, auditors or third party consultants came out and determined, okay, this would be a fair way to go forwards. Also with the extension of the contracts. If, like I said, we will be growing, I would believe, between 6 to 8% in Latin American passengers, but we are 3-4 years behind what the scale or the line of growth was beginning in 2019 on a normal year, and the line of growth from a much lower base to catch up the other graphs. We will have tremendous gaps in the number of passengers. And we were expecting more passengers by, let's say, 2027, and probably in 2027, we'll have the passengers today of what we were expecting for 2024. So those things have to be negotiated with airports because depending on your model, you need passengers, so you need extension. So that is an ongoing process always. But my best recommendation is that go with an independent third party to make a fair assessment of the situation. Negotiation with health authorities for requirements for a number of people that can go into the store. That has proven to be a challenge. But that has been difficult. I would say they have their point, we have our point. And so far I think we have been able to get to a good medium point. The other challenge, back in March last year, we have too much inventory. Now we have too little inventory. And is supply chain, rate increases, merchandise availability is an everyday challenge in our team. What to get and how to get it, when to get it, place the order, see, pray, have contact with your suppliers to see what you can get. And so whatever hands we can get, or whatever merchandise we can get our hands on, we'll get it. So I see that is a major challenge these days, to see how we can get merchandise going on. So we foresee that is a problem.
I kept this question for you. I didn't ask the others about it, and I just wanted to see what is your opinion about that. With the experience that you gained over the time, what has to be changed with regard to the relationship between landlord and tenant, airport and retailer, to avoid ending up in such a, I'm calling it mess, probably this is not the right word, but in the event of another similar event as we have with COVID-19, we don't want to go through the same process, which has been very difficult. So what has to change?
I want to go back to the previous question for one thing, that something that was very easy, get the commitment of the team in our companies. And I think has been the same for everybody have talked. Our team of people got together, even some of them were on furlough. They really write and they really were behind the company. I mean, everybody was working, and wherever I talk in this industry is that has been the situation. They were working from home, most of them. They were pushing, doing. I had guys that were in the office and say, "Do you need people in the warehouse? I am available. You know, we need to reduce costs. Can we do other things? Do we need to do any repairs? I am a good painter, even though I'm a salesman. I am a good painter. So you are going to do some painting or fixing up." So people came out of the woods with everywhere in every country to really how they can help. That really made me feel proud of my team and the staff, and it's something I will always appreciate. To your next question, I think it's all appetite for contracts. What clauses do we have to include in contracts to foresee if this happen again? So I think we need to work together with the airports. They understand the situation now. Of course, they depend on the revenue of duty-free stores, but we need to have clauses that prevent for this type of events in the future, that will go back to what do you do in you pay per passenger, or you don't pay with your clothes, or you pay a minimum rent. With IMGs or minimum rent guarantees, I think is something that we'll have to get away from, go more a percentage base, because opening your store, you are opening with 100% of your staff and having 50%, 60% of the passengers, you have a much larger increase. Of course, the airport also has them to operate, but the airports are a public service. They is a service for the city, it's a service for the country. We are a service to the public. It's a different, I see there's a very important line there. They have to provide that service even if one passenger comes in. We are a service, you know, to make those one passenger that came in, or 50 or 1,000 or 2,000 passengers that came in, happy, and making their traveling experience better. The airports do not understand that. They are much concentrated on, I need that revenue. I need that revenue. It's on my plan. It's on my budget. No, okay. We are experienced providers. We provide things for people to buy. We provide happiness when people buy, but we are service to the public. We are not a public service. To me, that's the key thing, how we negotiate contracts in the future. But we might forget it 5 years from now if something happened, but the appetite has to change. And I think we need to negotiate contracts better and walk away from airports that insist of not having this type of process, or not having this type of parameters that could be discussed for in case something like this happens partially or whatever again.
Well, yeah, I think that is a good time today. If we don't do it today, we probably will
Never.
not doing it, and we run into the same issues as we have in the past. But yeah, I would agree with you. Mindful of the time that we have to close here. Thank you, Erasmo, for your contributions. And that will bring us, Steve, to the next question. This is, I think, the poll question number 4. If you could devote your primary focus to just 3 of the below over the next 12 and 24 months, which 3 would you select? And this is a similar question which we had already last December. Steve, where do we stand?
We're about a quarter of our participants that have responded.
So let's give a little bit more time and then we will see the results. Okay, Steve. And here we have clearly the leader with 78% sales growth. So I think that, and it's obviously also not a surprise, that the focus will be on sales growth. And there are other elements too to it. We see 43% say digital transformation, and this is important. I think that we as an industry have still good room to make good on some digital innovations that happen in other parts in other markets. So we see this as an important initiative. Training, obviously, that comes along also with sales goals. Obviously, we need to have trained people. Innovation disruption, I think that goes together with digital is important, and just confirms that we have really to work on initiatives that show innovation and show digital transformation. Okay, so clearly sales growth is important. First and foremost is to grow sales and then also do others, other initiatives, take consideration other initiatives. With that being said, we're going to come to the last part, and that is a couple of words about cruises, a couple of words about the Caribbean, and also a couple of words about Mexico, which we've not really specifically touched. And the same Mexico is important to, because it is an important market in Latin America. And I will cover these three markets relatively briefly. Again, I'm mindful of the time. Just about cruises first. We have obviously seen the cruises, starting or the resuming operations in North America, and that basically has started more or less in June of this year, June, July this year. But on the other side, and someone has mentioned that before, we are far from being or that being normal. The rules on what you can do on and off the ships vary. Depending on the port of call, the cruise line, or the vaccination status, you may or you may not be able to explore independently onshore locations. Then is this rule in the United States that those ships which have at least 95% of the passenger and crew fully vaccinated are allowed to relax safety rules on board the ship. According to the CDC operators of those cruises, they may advise passenger and crew that they do not have to wear masks or maintain physical distance in any areas on board the ship. However, on the other side, if you have a cruise that has less than 95% of passengers vaccinated, there may be areas designated for those who are fully vaccinated or have gotten the shots. And in those vaccinated only areas, passengers can go without a mask. But in other indoor areas where passengers mingle, vaccinated, not vaccinated, they may have to wear masks and respect the physical distance. Generally, the CDC recommends that people who are not fully vaccinated avoid cruise travel. Today, and this is what, as we mentioned earlier, ships are sailing today at reduced capacity for now. How much reduced? That depends on the cruise line. It's expected that the numbers, however, will increase over time. And as we move closer and closer to the holiday period, we will probably see ships starting to cruise at capacity. A little bit of history here. After halting cruise ships from sailing in March 2020 in response to COVID pandemic, the CDC on the 30th of October has decided and imposed a 4-phase conditional framework that would allow the industry to gradually resume operations. Of course, if all these criteria were met. Those included various mitigation procedures, but also a simulated cruise to test these procedures before embarking regular passengers. Then in June and July this year, the Florida State and the CDC fought a legal battle in various courts. Judges for the federal appeal courts finally in July ruled that the CDC cannot keep on its COVID-19 safety measures in place as cruises sail from Florida. But this was not the end. A federal judge in August ruled on request of Norwegian Cruise Line that the cruise lines can require the passenger departing from Florida to show their vaccination status before they board. And this comes after a Carnival cruise that departed from Texas Galveston this summer had 27 COVID cases on board, and of which one passenger finally died from the virus. The good news here is that the propensity to cruise is still unbroken. In a survey that was conducted by cruisecompete.com, participants in the survey responded when asked how they will choose their next cruise, and that was 60%. They say, we will compare the onboard policies on cruise lines before choosing the line which we will book finally. However, the vast majority of survey respondents plan to cruise again before the end of this year. And actually 86.6% were saying that at least somewhat likely we will cruise. And 60%, more than 60% said definitely or very likely we will cruise before the end of the year. Now, the path of recovery may look slow at first sight, but considering the fact that the industry was shut down for more than a year, we should be extremely happy to see it emerging from its worst crisis in the history. Now we move on to the Caribbean. And if you think that the Caribbean islands are a homogeneous place in the way they handled COVID pandemic, then I think we are all extremely optimistic. Some of the most popular tourist destinations are in fact high-risk areas: Aruba, Curacao, Bahamas, British Virgin Islands, US Virgin Islands, Jamaica, Martinique, Puerto Rico, St. Barts, St. Lucia, and the Dominican Republic. There are exceptions to that, meaning areas with low risks, such as Anguilla, Grenada, Montserrat, and Saba. But these are not the most popular tourist destinations. I'll say that they are not nice tourist destinations, but not the most popular, the biggest tourist destinations. Correspondingly, there are as many travel retail requirements in place as there are probably islands. If I was to group them, I would create three kind of baskets. The first one are the islands that are basically open for tourists, and with there's little restrictions such as proof of negative test results. And these are islands like Aruba, Curacao, Bahamas, and Dominican Republic. Second basket are the islands where the measures differ depending on the status of vaccination. So you have a set of measures in place for vaccinated people, a set of measures in place for non-vaccinated people. Often, for non-vaccinated people, quarantine is required. And that can be just a couple of days until you have a second test done, and a second test negative. It can also be a more 5, 10 days, depends. In the last basket, these are the islands which are basically still closed for tourists, so they have strict curfews in place. Here, the islands are particularly Cayman Island. Cayman Island is closed for tourists at least till the 30th of October. We have Guadeloupe and Martinique here, and we have also Jamaica. Jamaica is open to tourists, but they have strict curfews in place, and there's only a couple of hotels open on a small stretch on the islands, on the coast. Now, if someone of you plans to travel to the Caribbean, say for Thanksgiving or Christmas, I really strongly recommend that you carefully study requirements, which are changing out frequently. Now, there is also hope that towards the high season, and the high season starting in sometime in November, that some of the rules are going to be relaxed in some of the islands, so it makes it more easier to access them or travel to them. Now, despite several islands across the Caribbean having such stringent measures in place and making it hard to visit them, ACI's traffic report shows strong recovery in passenger numbers that started earlier this summer, May, June around. To give you a figure in perspective, the passenger numbers in August 21 stood at +7% in comparison to the same months in 2019. And this data include Puerto Rico. Now, if you extract Puerto Rico from this equation, you take it out, then the Caribbean stands at -21%, which still is very good considering the situation. Now, the contributing islands, as you may easily imagine, are those which I mentioned first, those with the least stringent measures in place, and rules: Dominican Republic, Aruba, Curacao, Bahamas, and Puerto Rico. These figures show once again the propensity to travel is still there and unbroken. And if the islands continue to progress with vaccination and also to get the virus under control, the Delta virus under control, mitigate that, I see a bright future ahead, short term even for this coming season, but also then longer term. Just a word about the vaccination. With the exception of 2 islands, where the vaccination rate is in a single digit still, and this is not surprisingly Haiti, and then the other one is Jamaica. Majority of the islands have rates in around 50% or even above. These are islands like Anguilla, Aruba, Bermuda, Cayman Island, Curacao, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, St. Martin, and that includes also St. Barts and Saba, Turks and Caicos, and US Virgin Islands. And these are very important tourist destinations. So the chance that these islands open up to tourists for the coming winter season, I think this chance is rather high, considering the progress they make on the vaccination front. So that brings us then to the last part. This is Mexico, and here just quickly about the land border. And I just mentioned it before when I interviewed Jackie. The US-Mexican land border is still closed for non-essential travel. And this is a little bit in contrast to what happened in the northern border, where Canada has unilaterally lifted the travel ban. But here in Mexico, both sides have still the travel ban in place. On the other side, when you take a plane and you fly to Mexico from anywhere, you can get into Mexico without having to go to quarantine, nor have their testing requirement in place. In the first 4 months of this year, and just to give a couple of figures, more than 2 million Americans visited Mexico. According to the Mexican government, they represent 76% of all international visitors that have arrived so far by air. Air ticketing for Americans arrivals to Mexico were up by 32% in the third quarter of 2021, and that compared to the same period in 2019. On the other side, we may imagine that as well, the infection rate in Mexico has gone up, actually by up 85% if you take the summer into consideration here, and that constitutes a third wave in the pandemic. 2 of the 5 Mexican states with the highest rate of infection are popular with tourists. One is Quintana Roo, where you have Cancun, you have Riviera Maya, and then the other one is Baja California. Now, it was economic pressure that prevailed when Mexico reopened last summer without testing or quarantine mandates. And thanks to US visitor and domestic travelers, the overall passenger numbers in Mexico are only down overall by 10%, according to ACI, compared to 2019. Now, here are a couple of examples. Cancun received the highest absolute PAX numbers of all airports in Mexico, exceeding its pre-pandemic level already. In July, that is an example, reached already plus 2% versus 2019. The figure was expected due to the increase, remarkable increase of tourist arrivals. And that positions Cancun as probably the favorite post-quarantine destination for travel in Mexico, but also in the region and possibly even beyond that. Other airports have shown similar increases in their flight operations, such as Cozumel, that in July 2021 compared to July 2019 are up 7.5%, Puerto Vallarta 14.4%, and Los Cabos 11.1% to pre-COVID periods. And we talk here about July 2019. What obviously also helps make Mexico attractive is the exchange rate. And as American, you get 20 peso for the dollar. And the relative short distance is not a plus. Within 3 to 4 hours or even less, you can be in Mexico from any major airports in the US. And that makes it very attractive. And you can reach in this short period, you can reach some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Now, there is a most recent effort, and I need to mention that, to control the surge of infections. The government and the government in Mexico is considering screening international travelers for COVID-19. The Mexico Association of Tourism Ministers, state tourism ministers, have asked the federal government to implement a policy that requires incoming travelers to present their COVID-19 vaccination certificates or a proof of negative test result. Again, these are most recent talks at government level, nothing that has been decided yet, and possibly nothing will be decided ever. So this is just something that is being discussed at government level. That may not have an impact on the tourist arrivals, but so far Mexico has been doing outstandingly well, specifically in the tourist destinations. Now that brings us to the end. We have one poll questions left, Steve. How difficult has it been for you to retain your most talented people and hire new staff? And this is something that we have here asked Jackie, we've asked Jody particular, and we would like to ask you and see what the feedback is. If you had similar situation, witness similar difficulties. Stephen, how does it look like?
We are at about 50% of our participants that have responded.
Okay, a couple of more seconds and then we will show. Okay, Steve, what is the okay? How difficult it has been for you to retain most talented people and hire new staff? And then here, 53% say somewhat difficult and extremely difficult. 13%. So in total, we have 66% of people who say it is somehow difficult or extremely difficult, and that stands obviously in contrast to the people with CC find appropriate stuff. And that confirms basically also what Jody and Jackie said before about how difficult it is to find stuff. Okay, now we have time, a couple of minutes for question and answers. I just would like to remind you, if you have any questions, you use the Q&A button on the bottom of in the menu on the bottom of your screen. We have a couple of questions here. Let me see. Okay, I'll ask the first questions, and it probably goes to Jackie and to Jody, and it says here, as we approach the reopening of the USA-Canada border, do you foresee them delaying it further? And that goes to Jackie, who said the 30th of November is the deadline. So how do you see that happening? You see that further delaying, further postponing and extending?
It's very hard to say, because if you would have asked me this 12 months ago, I would have said, no, it won't be delayed. And here we are 12 months later. So I cannot see them delaying it any further. It would be dependent on new variant. The vaccination rollout is going quite well in Canada, and 2/3 of the US are vaccinated. So I don't know how they could justify not getting it open or delaying it any further.
Okay, there is not a question. There's more kind of a request, as I may say, and I guess it is something also for us, for me, and for Michael. One another channel that, if I'm correct, has not been prevalent in IDFS is the cruise line channel. If we can get more key cruise lines to participate, it could add an additional element to the show. I think a very valid point, Michael.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's a really good question and something that we are focused on trying to expand. We certainly have had topical discussions with cruise line representatives in some of our educational sessions and plenary sessions, and we've always had some level of participation from cruise lines, but not as much as I hope we can achieve. And I think that Renee and I spent some time working on that a couple of years ago. And then, of course, the show got postponed, and then we went virtual. Cruise lines were part of that. So yeah, I think it's an area that we need to pay more attention to, and that's our intent.
Thank you, Michael. We have one question here. It says, and it's about Argentina. I don't know whether Erasmo will be able to answer that one. How do you see the coming months for travel retail in Argentina with the devaluation of the peso versus the dollar blue?
I'm not an expert on Argentina, but I can tell you a little bit of what's happening in all countries. The Colombian peso is down, went down to about 3,900. It got better Monday, about 3,750, 7,780. The Peruvian sol has been down because of the political situation. To be honest with you, I have, all currencies in Latin America have been devalued because all countries have gotten more debt there in order to provide for vaccination or balance their budget in a period of less tax collection. But I really don't know what is going to happen to the Argentinian peso. I have no idea. But all countries have been affected in their balance of trade. As far as we know, and with a weaker currency, it's more difficult to travel. But we have also seen more financing from banks or consumer lending institutions for traveling as well, or for purchasing, for both. But not an expert on Argentina, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Erasmo. And I think that
Enrique Urioste should answer that question.
Yes, unfortunately. I think that the two questions coming in, the two questions are kind of answers to you. A point, Erasmo, to the question that we had. One says the Argentine peso will depend on the midterm elections. Good point. And then expect further devaluations as foreign exchange reserves disappear. Correct too. So I mean, we have to be aware of the fact that if Latin America comes out of the pandemic, the underlying economic issues are still there, and that is the issues that we were all facing before we went into the pandemic, and probably even a little bit more accentuated. But it is too early to say. We have just to overcome first pandemic and then address the other issues. But I cannot see that the other issues have gone away with the pandemic. So they're going to stay still there. Okay. I don't see any questions anymore. I think there were questions that have been asked. That will bring us now to the end of this webinar. Pretty much in time. We had a slight delay. I'm sorry for that. We expected to be through in 90 minutes. Anyway, I think we have done pretty well with the time. So I would like to say thank you to Jackie, to Jordi, and to Erasmo for taking the time today to share some very valuable insights on how you have and you navigate still in process. Obviously, we're still in this pandemic together, but how you navigated your business through these stormy waters. It was particularly interesting also to hear from you how confident you are with respect to the short and long-term future. Let's hope that the path which we are on is sustainable, and 2022 altogether will be better than 2020 and 21 together. Depending on your feedback and how this COVID pandemic is moving on, we may consider another webinar in this series, but we were going to come back when it's appropriate. Now, we hope to see you all soon again, latest next spring, when we have the Summit of the Americas. In the coming months, we will be very busy to design this new show, which, as Michael has pointed out, will be different. And by saying so, I think we're going to be, hope to be equally successful as in the past, but I'm very convinced that we're going to be even more successful with this new model. Now let's close here. I would like to thank you for the time you took to attend and wish you all a wonderful and successful continuation of your working week. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.